This boy died hundreds of times over 12 years. In his dreams, he was trapped in a world of demonic beasts. Every time he died, he returned to his bedroom. This exhausting cycle caused him to be reborn into the world of his nightmares, the demonic kingdom. But now, everything was real, and there is only one way to survive. Wu Jin must hunt demonic beasts, because with every kill, he can devour the creatures and grow stronger. In other words, this guy can evolve infinitely as a beast hunter. He then wonders if he actually died in the world he lived in. Then, he starts to feel certain that this place is his new reality. Sitting against a tree, he understands he's in the nightmare world. Putting his hands on his head, he is shocked by the terrible conclusion, when suddenly, he notices a strange movement and becomes alert. Behind him, a giant creature with a snake's body emerges from between the trees. Hiding, he reflects that with all the blood he lost, he shouldn't be alive. Remembering his fallen body, he's sure that he might actually be dead. Kneeling on the tree root, he thinks about the consequences of this new situation. Standing up, he realizes that if he dies here, there's nowhere to go back to. Looking ahead, he accepts that this place is his new reality. He knows exactly what he needs to do to survive in this dangerous world. Thinking about the situation, he decides it's best not to fight them right now. Remaining silent, he analyzes what to do before making a decision. Drawing his weapon, he feels a strange new urge to fight, so he decides not to run, turning to face the creature head-on. He wonders if it's because he slept well or because his body is young. Seeing his stance, the creature charges straight at him to attack. With a firm grip on his weapon, he feels his whole body craving a fight. He then prepares himself, determined to fight and to survive. Lunging forward, he lands a powerful blow right on the larger monster, and with one strike, he defeats the creature easily. After the fight, he stands before the monster's defeated body. In the sky, several beams of light appear and descend toward the forest. Pulling out his weapon, he kneels beside the defeated creature. From inside the body, he begins to remove a strange-looking core. Holding the item in his hand, he observes it for a brief moment. Analyzing the object, he brings it closer to his face and seems to examine it closely. Then he bites the core, starting to eat the thing without hesitation. Standing in the forest, he looks around, perhaps feeling a different effect. He then tells himself that he will survive in this world at all costs. Starting to run, he decides that first, he needs to follow his plan. He states that he needs to get to a brighter area, running in that direction. Sitting on a tree branch, he soaks in the sunlight to rest. In the morning, the sun lights up the trees, bringing a bit of peace and tranquility. Closing his eyes, he finally manages to relax in a safe place. He shows a faint smile, looking much calmer and more at ease. Saying he had a perfect sleep, he feels much better now. In the sky, leaves fly with the wind, marking the passage of time. A month has passed, and he's fighting a monster in the middle of the woods. Even though he's willing to fight, he claims he isn't looking for a brawl. Near a fallen creature, he reflects on not risking his life for fun, but leaning against a tree, he knows he can't avoid the need to fight. Saying he's hungry, he mentions that he only hunts when he needs to eat. In a swift move, he lunges forward and strikes his target. From inside the monster, he sees he can obtain a new power. Without a second thought, he starts eating the slain creature's core. He then says that by consuming it, there's a chance to gain power. Sitting in the forest, he thinks that eating the cores has made his adaptation easier. Then he remembers that he also discovered something else important. Picking up a pendant, he sees the body belonged to a mercenary. Analyzing the tag, he confirms it's a third-class mercenary. He then realizes that the existence of this ID was very important, because it meant there were other people living in this same world. Looking at the light at the edge of the woods, he finally sees a glimmer of hope. But suddenly, he notices something strange and stops instantly. Startled, he jumps back and wonders what that was. Looking at the ground, he realizes he's found a hunting trap. He then understands what the presence of that trap meant. Jumping again, he understands there might be people nearby. Running towards the light, he rushes to get out of the forest quickly. Reaching a clearing, he spots a small wooden house right there. His eyes widen in surprise as he sees it's a house. Arriving at the house, he knocks on the door to see if anyone is inside. He asks if anyone is there, but no one seems to answer his call. Inside, he finds an old-looking book on the table. Touching the object, he tries to figure out what this mysterious book is. Flipping through the pages, he sees it's a record of the demonic realm. Reading the content, he's very surprised by the information he finds. He notices that the history of that place was written in great detail. He then understands that this book is what he needs to survive. Suddenly, he hears the sound of footsteps coming his way. An older man appears, gruffly asking who he is. Aiming a crossbow, he says to answer, or he'll put a hole in his head. He then realizes the man must think he's a thief. Trying to explain, he says he only came in out of pure curiosity, but the man tells him to get lost, saying he has no business with him. He says he understands the situation but remains still, looking at the book. With his hand on the book, he insists he needs to take that important object. He then asks if he can borrow the book, offering to pay. The older man stares him down, questioning what he would do if he refused. He thinks that he desperately needs that book to survive in this world. Preparing to fight, he places his hand on the weapon at his waist. He then realizes he might have to become a thief to get it. Facing the man, he readies himself for a fight, prepared to draw his weapon. Meanwhile, the old hunter keeps his crossbow aimed, not letting his guard down. He thinks that even without knowing the old man's strength, he doesn't feel like he would lose. The old man then seems to change his mind, showing a slight smile. Lowering his weapon, he introduces himself to the young man, saying his name is Haitor. Surprised, the young man admits he let his guard down and introduces himself as Kim Woo Jin. Haitor finds the name peculiar and asks to call him Jin instead. Jin then realizes his name must be hard to pronounce. Haitor says the book is precious, but allows him to stay and read it. In exchange, Haitor asks for help with chores, and Jin thanks him for the opportunity. At night, the small house in the forest is completely surrounded by fog. With a cauldron on the fire, he ends up staying at the old hunter's house. Sitting at the table, Haitor offers him a plate of food, telling him to eat. Receiving the food, he's surprised to have soup after such a long time. Tasting the meal, he finds the food delicious and even gets emotional. The next day, he asks if Haitor is going out, and he confirms. Haitor then says he's going to get revenge on the beast that killed his companions. He then reflects that the creature must be terrifying, since Haitor is strong. Heading out the door, Haitor leaves for the hunt, leaving the young man alone. Taking advantage of the time, he goes back to reading the record of the demonic realm. Reading the book, he discovers that every story begins with the Northern Empire. The king of this empire was blinded by greed and sought a forbidden power. He then used a portal that was said to hold the truth of all things. From that day on, a great disaster began to unfold across the world. Powerful beasts emerged from the portal, turning the north into a demonic realm. Humans then formed an alliance, building a barrier to stop the expansion. Closing the book, he places it on the table after reading all the information. With a hand on his chin, he reflects that there's a lot in there he can use. He then realizes that the beasts grew weaker the closer he got to the light. Back in the forest, Haitor is running hard, heading home quickly. This makes him wonder just how deep he really was in the demonic realm. He then starts to wonder how strong he really is in this new world. Nearby, a pack of wolves runs at high speed through the woods. Being pursued, Haitor runs hard, preparing for combat with his crossbow. The creatures leap towards him, surrounding the old hunter for an attack. He stops suddenly, planting his feet on the ground to counterattack. Leaping into the air, he shoots several arrows at once in their direction, but the monsters dodge the shots, advancing on him without any difficulty. Unable to react, he screams in desperation, seeing there's no way to escape. Suddenly, Jin appears on the scene as Haitor is thrown backward. Holding his weapon, he prepares for combat against the pack. Screaming in desperation, Haitor tells Jin to run because it's too dangerous. Ignoring him, he charges forward, passing right by the endangered old hunter. Seeing the young man charge forward, Haitor is shocked by his unexpected action. With a serious face, he keeps running towards the wolf pack. Gaining momentum, he stomps hard on the ground and then leaps. Jumping high, he soars over the monsters for a surprise attack. Caught by surprise, the werewolf looks up with no time to react. Coming down with full force, he unleashes a powerful strike with his weapon on the creature. Scoring a direct hit, the blow slices right through the monster's body without stopping. From the impact, the creature falls to the ground while the others just watch. Seeing this, another monster from the pack turns towards the young man. Completely shocked, Haitor is speechless at what he just witnessed. He then asks how Jin defeated a werewolf with a single blow. Turning to Haitor, he calls his name to start the conversation. With blood on his face, Jin asks if that creature is really considered a strong beast. Haitor asks if he really wants to know if werewolves are strong. With a serious look, he confirms that he does and that they are very strong. Hearing the answer, Jin simply says he understands the gravity of the situation. Facing the pack, he says he'll hear the details after the fight. Then, the rest of the creatures charge toward them without stopping. He thinks that even if they're weak, there are 40 of them, and they could be dangerous together. Devising a strategy, he decides to slit the throat of the strongest one to scare them off. With a focused gaze, he scans the pack for his real target. Right at the front, he finds the leader, who was much larger than the others. Preparing his strike, he says that's the first one he needs to kill. Seeing the threat, the creature glares at him, its eyes glowing with pure rage. He stares back, focusing completely on his target without showing any fear. The creature seems to hesitate, turning its face to the side for a moment. Suddenly, the monster is shocked by something that startles it. Turning its head, it ends up bumping into a smaller wolf beside it. Startled, the wolf suddenly starts to flee. The entire pack is thrown into confusion, not knowing what to do. Watching the pack flee, Jin stands still, observing the scene from a distance. Heitor then wonders how the wolves, known for their bravery, ran away. With a hand on his chin, he seems to analyze the leader's behavior. Running non-stop, the pack leader flees quickly through the forest. Back at the cabin, time passes and night falls. Heitor then explains that the reward for the werewolf was 40 gold coins. He asks if that's a lot of money, and Heitor confirms that it is. He's surprised to learn that it's enough to live on for 7 years. Looking at the body, he reflects on the value of the reward he received. He then shows a slight smile, seemingly having a new idea. He realizes he can make a lot of money by killing other similar monsters. On the monster's body, a bag of coins represents the full payment. Heitor hands over several items as payment, including the pelt, meat, and a map. He then tells him to take everything to Pioneer Village to find Jacob. Handing him another bag of coins, he says Jacob will pay well for the pelt. Heitor explains that Jin deserves it all, as he was the one who killed the monster. Extending his hand, he prepares to say goodbye to the young man. He thanks him deeply for the revenge, hoping they might meet again someday. The two then shake hands, sealing their deal and new friendship. With a sincere look, Jin thanks him for all the help he received. After the farewell, the scene shifts to the outside of the house. With his things gathered, he leaves the house as Heitor watches him go. Carrying his belongings, he follows the road, beginning his new journey alone. As he walks, the wolf from before watches him from atop a large rock. The beast then stares back at him, seeming to analyze his presence. Baring its teeth, the creature lets out a threatening growl in his direction. Arriving at his destination, he spots the large gate of Pioneer Village. Reaching his destination, he finally gets a close look at Pioneer Village. Passing through the gate, he talks to the guard, finding the place quite busy. Walking through the village streets, he draws the attention of all the residents. Then, two men stare at him suspiciously, watching his every move. He then realizes everyone is watching him, perhaps because he's a stranger. Reflecting on the situation, he understands that people are more dangerous than monsters. Seeing a tavern sign, he decides to go inside to look for information. Entering the place, he once again becomes the center of attention. A large man watches him pass, sizing the young man up from head to toe. Reaching the counter, the bartender asks if he'd like a beer. Refusing the drink, he asks if anyone knows where to find a man named Jacob. The bartender then turns, pointing to the person he was looking for. With a knife in hand, the man introduces himself as Jacob, looking like a swindler. Jin says that Heitor sent him there to sell a werewolf pelt. Dropping the knife, Jacob asks if Heitor really killed a werewolf. He realizes Jacob assumed it was Heitor and decides to say nothing more. When he opens the package, Jacob is shocked to see a werewolf pelt. Everyone in the bar comments that even though he's old, Heitor is still Heitor. With a smile on his face, Jacob shows his complete satisfaction with the item. One of the men says he expected as much, knowing he would succeed. Suddenly, a group of men approaches and begins to surround him. Confused, he asks the men what they are doing. Wearing the pelt, Jacob tells him to leave so he can spare his life. Confirming he's a swindler, he questions if Jacob was always like this. Jacob tells him to shut up, saying he just made an investment in Heitor. He then says he needs the pelt to compensate for all his losses. With a serious look, he wonders if he should kill the man right there. Clenching his fist, he decides he shouldn't kill someone over a pelt. He throws a drink in a man's face, telling him he's lucky. Jacob tells the kid not to get smart and to get out of there. Remaining silent, he wipes the drink dripping down his face. He then stands up, turning his back to Jacob and his goons. Tossing the bag and map on the floor, he starts to leave the bar. Jacob says it was a good choice, holding the bag of coins. Suddenly, Jacob turns his head, looking toward the door. Turning around, he shoves a cabinet against the door to block it, surprising everyone in the bar. He then calls out to Jacob, who looks his way, confused. He then says that if you're going to make a move, you should aim for the neck. Jacob takes back what he said, saying the kid doesn't know the value of life. At that, the group of men charges forward to attack all at once. Screaming for him to die, one of the goons lunges at him with everything he's got. He readies himself for the fight, taking a firm combat stance. The man tries to strike, but he blocks it with a swift, agile move. The goon yells that he's strong while trying to hold on to his weapon. He then glares at the enemy, ready to end the fight at once. Attacking with speed, he takes down one goon as the others advance together. A man tries to catch him by surprise, aiming a blow with his axe, but he dodges just in time, the blow shattering the wooden floor. Kicking a tabletop, he hits the enemy square in the face. Taking the hit, the man curses in pain from the unexpected impact, and Jin slashes him. With his face stained with blood, he continues to fight without hesitation. Clutching the pelt, Jacob wonders where a monster like him came from. In the middle of the fight, Jacob thinks he's never seen a fighter this strong. Surrounded again, two men rush him with their daggers. He then turns, landing a blow on one of his attackers. With great force, his strike hits the man's chest and knocks him down. With a final blow, he strikes the last goon, who falls to the floor. Finishing the fight, he stands before the fallen bodies of the men. With a cut on his face, he glares at the rest of the group without backing down. Terrified, Jacob desperately screams for all his men to run. The two of them start running in a panic, trying to escape as fast as possible. In their haste, they end up throwing themselves through the window, shattering everything. Now outside, Jacob falls to the ground, looking up in fear. With wide eyes, he wonders what that creature was. Right after, a red wolf appears, leaving him completely bewildered. Coming closer, Jin steps in front of the man to protect him. As the wolf advances, all the men cower in fear behind him. Staring at the creature, he can't understand what is happening. But suddenly the wolf starts to bark, wagging its tail like a dog. He then wonders if this is the search wolf from the forest. The wolf then looks back at him, seemingly confirming his suspicion. He then asks if the wolf came here to die like the others. Hearing the question, the animal closes its eyes, looking offended. It then throws itself on the ground, starting to cry and roll from side to side. Continuing the act, it turns and shows its ears as if to apologize. Then, it lies on its back, acting like a dog. Jacob and his men stand frozen, not understanding anything that's happening. Jin is also confused, wondering about all this strange behavior. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the wolf seems terrified of the whole situation. Facing the men, he points at them, perhaps giving the wolf an order. With a serious look, he tells the creature to go bite them all. The small creature that was fleeing before suddenly gets a menacing look. Charging to attack, it leaps toward one of the men. The creature then bites the man's head, who screams in pain and despair. In the midst of the chaos, all that can be seen is the creature's silhouette. He then praises the animal, saying it did a good job. Terrified, Jacob cowers on the ground, watching the creature attack his men. The beast bites one of the henchmen, tossing his body aside. Not knowing what to do, Jacob realizes he needs to get out of this situation. Watching the man, he realizes he's just some random idiot. So Jacob bows, begging him to spare his life. Breaking into a cold sweat, he thinks that revenge could only come after he escaped. He then slams his weapon into the ground, right in front of Jacob's face. With blood on his face, Jacob is paralyzed with fear by that action. He approaches, holding his weapon as the man begs for his life. With a serious look, he wonders what to do with this bastard. He then reflects on who Jacob thinks he is to act that way. In a memory, a man asks him to forgive him just this once. He recalls his manager telling him to understand the company's situation. He remembers that at the time, he had no choice but to accept. He realizes that by accepting, the salary that was a week late became even later. In the memory, he questions the manager about his salary for that month. The manager then turns around with a golf club, calling the young man a brat. Screaming at him, the manager treats him like he's selfish. Back in the present, he remembers how he felt like a miserable piece of shit. He thinks that back then, he ended up learning a very valuable lesson. Suddenly, Jacob gets a frightening look, showing a strange smile. With blood on his face, he laughs sinisterly, preparing to attack. Charging from behind, he draws a dagger, ready to strike. Screaming, he lunges with all his might, trying to hit the young man head on. But he turns just in time, dodging the attack with a swift movement. He then grabs Jacob's arm, saying that they are scum like him. Then he says they are people who don't know the meaning of remorse. With a bloody face, Jacob curses, showing all his hatred. In a swift move, he lands a fatal blow, sending the man flying. After the strike, all that can be seen is Jacob's head. With blood on his face, he says that this time things will be different. He then steps on Jacob's hand, saying he will never accept that kind of treatment. Turning his head, he prepares to deal with what's left. He wonders what he should do with the wolf that was still there. The creature places a bag on the ground, seeming to want to follow him. Inside the bag, he sees several gold coins shining like treasure. Turning to the wolf, he becomes thoughtful, unsure of what to do. He then asks if the wolf wants to join him on his journey. Happy with the response, the creature rubs against him, like a dog. He then pets the animal on the head, showing a slight smile. He then accepts the wolf, saying it made a very wise choice. Petting the animal, he says he thinks the two of them will get along well. The scene then changes, showing the Great Wall of a huge city. In the sky, the sun shines, signaling the start of a new day. Waking up in his room, he sits on the bed while the wolf sleeps. With a slight smile, he realizes he finally had a perfect night's sleep. He then stretches, feeling completely refreshed by the cool morning. Outside, he starts washing his clothes near a stream. Splashing some water, he stares at his reflection with a thoughtful look. He then reflects that he has killed several people for the first time in his life, but he wonders why he can't feel any guilt about it. He questions if it was because they were scum, but that wasn't the emotion. Then he realizes the adrenaline was the same as when hunting monsters. Placing a hand on his chest, he feels that something inside him is changing. Looking at his hand, he tries to understand this transformation he's feeling now. He then wonders if he's been cursed, but decides that surviving is good. His life here will be very different from his old life. With a determined look, he decides he will simply enjoy the present. Arriving in the city, Jin says they first need to sell the pelt. He then tells the wolf to stay close, but hidden from everyone. Walking through the city, he remembers he needs to go to the Order's alliance. Carrying a bag, he thinks the alliance branch must be nearby. In the distance, he spots a large white building with a very tall tower. Arriving at the entrance, he asks a man if this is the alliance. He throws the monster's pelt on the table, leaving the man very confused. With the pelt in front of him, he says he's there to collect. The man says this is no place for games with a wolf pelt, but suddenly, he looks closer and his eyes go wide. Screaming in fear, he says that it's a real werewolf pelt. With a pale face, he asks if the young man was the one who got it. Confirming the story, he says he got the pelt earlier that day. Sitting in a room, he waits patiently for his reward payment. A man then arrives, saying they needed to run tests on the pelt first. He then hands over a bag, confirming that the pelt is indeed authentic. Looking at the bag, he thinks that this is enough to live on. Opening the bag, he sees the gold coins, feeling a different kind of adrenaline rush. With a smile, he says that money is definitely a very good thing. Suddenly, he turns, realizing someone was calling him. The man then asks if he would like to accept a new request. Surprised by the offer, he wonders what kind of request it would be. The man says a monster has appeared, and it's causing a lot of trouble. Because of the monster, the workers can no longer enter the quarry. He says the monster is stronger than a common werewolf. He then says that if the young man can handle it, he'll be paid very well. With a serious look, he asks what kind of monster it is. Scared, the man says its name is Mad Skull. He remembers reading about Mad Skull in the Chronicles. He also recalls having faced one of them in the past. The creature had a very hard skull, difficult to break or pierce. He also remembers that the monster is very aggressive and much stronger. Remembering the first time, he died 28 times to finally kill it. The man then asks if he thinks he can really subdue the creature. Falling silent, he stares at the man for a moment before answering. With a confident smile, he says, of course, deciding on his next prey. Arriving at the quarry, he finds a large rock extraction site. Walking through the area, he remembers no one was working because of the monster. Seeing the mine, he finds the place depressing and wants to leave as quickly as possible. Suddenly, he stops upon hearing a voice calling him from behind. A group of men asks him to wait, saying they got there first. With a serious look, he asks since when there's a line to hunt monsters. The man then tries to explain, looking a bit awkward. He then invites him to join their team to hunt together. He thinks that if he waits, he'll lose a lot of time, but he won't have to fight. Splitting the loot with them would be the best option to avoid a fight. He remembers Jacob and realizes he can't trust anyone here. Turning around, he asks why they're so eager to have him join their group. The man laughs, saying he prioritizes safety, not the team's performance. He then says he would be a great help, as the young man seems strong. He then wonders why the man thinks he's so strong. The man says the wolf wouldn't follow him if he weren't strong. A woman in the group says it's amazing to see a wolf following a human. Annoyed, he wonders when the wolf appeared, since he told it to hide. He then realizes the group offered meat to lure his companion out. With the piece of meat in its mouth, the wolf is sweating from nervousness and fear. It then throws the piece of meat on the ground to get away from the danger. Seeing the discarded food, he and the man from the group stare at each other briefly. With an irritated look, he questions who the wolf thinks he is. The meat on the ground glows, looking much more appetizing than before. Breaking into a cold sweat, he's left speechless, his body paralyzed by hunger. He wonders why his body is reacting in such a strange way. With wide eyes, he remembers the wolf had already eaten the meat. Placing a hand on the food, he thinks about his own human dignity. The woman from the group asks if he wants some since he looks hungry. He then turns to her with a strange, completely famished look. He then realizes the woman was like a goddess he could trust. Inside the mine, several lights illuminate the path into the cave's depths. Entering the place, they walk together to begin the monster hunt. Eating the meat, he says it's delicious and incomparable to monster meat. Turning to him, the woman says they haven't introduced themselves yet. The man introduces himself as Jonathan, and the woman says her name is Claire. He then introduces himself as Jin, and the man says it's a pleasure. With a slight smile, Jonathan seems to be observing the young man carefully. Arriving at a pit, he says this is where they'll fight the monster. He then starts giving orders, telling everyone to set up the nets and spears. He calls for Claire, who replies that they can start now. Watching the scene, he is surprised by the feathers that begin to float. Floating in the air, Claire begins to use magic with the help of her book. He realizes this was the magic mentioned in the chronicles. With her eyes closed, she asks for blessings upon this land in her name. With the magic, everyone's body starts to feel much lighter. Jonathan says that Claire's buffs are always great for battles. He says they have 5 minutes worst-case scenario to fight. He then tells everyone to get ready for the coming battle. Running towards the pit, he says he'll lure the monster there. With a smile, he realizes that magic is incredible. He then wonders if he too could learn to use magic. One of the men shouts, "There's no time to waste," as the monster is coming. He says that if one person messes up, everyone there could end up dead. He thinks luring the monster into the trap isn't a bad plan, but he questions whether this strategy will actually work against the monster. Jonathan then runs, acting as bait to lure the creature to them. Seeing the monster, he screams in desperation, calling for the trap team. The monster chases after him, trying to land a blow with its horn. The men shout that the Mad Skull has finally appeared for battle. With the trap, the monster ends up caught in a large iron net. The men then shout, telling everyone to pull the net hard. As the net closes, the monster is trapped, trying to break free. Jonathan shouts for the spear team to advance and attack the creature. Rushing to attack, the group of spearmen prepares to strike. They try to hit the monster, but are thrown back by its strength. Trapped in the net, the monster roars in fury, trying to escape the trap. The men lose their balance, nearly falling to the ground from the movement. Thrashing wildly, the creature begins to pull everyone down. He realizes the situation is not good, and that something must be done. Watching the fight, he sees the group is being overpowered by the monster. The men are thrown in all directions, unable to hold the creature. With great force, the monster begins to tear the net with its horns. Looking at the group, the monster reveals its eyes, filled with pure rage. It then braces itself, ready to use its full strength against them. Surprised, Claire sees the young man advancing alone against the furious monster. She then casts a spell in his direction to help him in the battle. He stops right in front of the creature, facing it without any fear. Gathering momentum, he stomps hard on the ground, preparing for the attack. With a leap, he grabs the monster's horn, climbing onto its body. He then comes face to face with the creature, ready to strike. Worried, Claire shouts that it's dangerous and for Jin to be careful. He tells her not to worry, as he has everything under control. With a confident look, he says he knows exactly how to defeat it. Grabbing the creature's tusks, he swiftly deflects the attack with his strength. Using his blade, he manages to block the creature's strike. But the monster's strength is too great. He had thought he was stronger. He then remarks that the monster possesses immense raw power. Just then, he realizes he let his guard down for a moment. Suddenly, strange feathers begin to float around him. As he's thrown back, Claire appears, saying she'll help. Feeling his body become lighter, Jin says it feels like a magic buff. Now Jin declares he can hunt the creature more easily. Seeing this, the group asks if they can help, but he yells for them to stay put. Not understanding the order, the group just watches the situation from a distance. Preparing himself again, he simply says, "It's better this way for now." Charging at the monster, he says it's easier to fight alone. He explains that to hunt this creature, you just need to know a few things. He says the monster is basically a pig. Running fast in a straight line, the creature has trouble turning. So he says he'll first use this weakness to stop it. Dodging at the last second, he makes the monster crash into the wall. Trying to brake suddenly, the creature digs its feet into the ground, but it ends up losing its balance and falls from the impact of the crash. He then remarks that the buff is making it harder for the monster to keep up. Then he explains that the monster's tusks work like human hands. However, he warns that they can't be cut by swords. In that case, he decides to aim directly for its weak spot, the nose. With a leap, he lands a precise strike right on the creature's snout. He notices the pain intensifies with the monster's every move. Preparing another attack, he focuses on finishing the creature off. He lands a powerful blow right on the creature's legs. Continuing the assault, he deepens the cut in the same spot. Then he warns that the monster won't get another chance to attack. With a victorious smile, he prepares for the final blow. Meanwhile, the group runs worriedly toward the fight. Arriving there, they wonder what happened and decide to look for Jin. Suddenly, they're startled by a creature that appears before them. Revealed to be a giant wolf, the animal stares at them seriously. Protecting the woman, the man carefully pulls her back. With a growl, the woman asks if it's telling them not to interfere. Just then, Jin appears, and the wolf reveals itself as his companion. Relieved, they ask about the monster, and Jin says he's already collected its essence. He then informs the group that the monster is no more. Pointing to the body, he says that now only flesh and hide are left. Impressed, they say they've never seen anyone defeat one of those alone. Suddenly his wolf starts sniffing the air, sensing something. Looking at the warrior, the wolf seems to warn him of something approaching. Just then, another huge creature emerges from a dark tunnel. With a furious glare, the monster stares down the group that invaded its space. Surprised, the warrior shouts that it's another monster and tells everyone to get ready. But the woman tells him to wait, noticing an important detail about the creature. Pointing behind the monster, she asks if it has young ones with it. Hiding behind the creature, two small piglets watch the situation, frightened. Seeing the threat, the mother creature growls loudly to protect her young. Jin and his companion just watch the scene unfold from a distance. Turning its back, the creature begins to move away with its young. The woman then asks if it's really just going to leave. The warrior says she probably just wanted to raise her young here in peace. Watching the family leave, Jin comments that he's glad they left peacefully. Scene change. Night falls on the 5th Pioneer City. Inside a tavern, the group gathers to celebrate the mission's success. Celebrating, the leader says he's happy they captured the monster with no casualties. Then he excitedly announces it's time to divide the rewards. At this, the rest of the group celebrates the news with great excitement and joy. Seeing the bags of money, the woman asks if that isn't more than 70 coins. Laughing, he explains the larger amount is thanks to his great bargaining. He lies, saying it wasn't one, but 2 monsters with several young. Because of that, he proudly announces the reward increased to 110 coins. Jin then questions how they got the money without even fighting the mother. With a smile, the leader simply admits he told a little white lie. The group praises the captain, saying if no one finds out, it becomes the truth. With his arms crossed, Jin just watches the group's interaction in silence. Coming closer, the leader puts a hand on his shoulder to get his attention. He then proposes giving half of all the earnings just to Jin. Surprised by the offer, Jin can only ask if it's really half. He says that without Jin, they all would have died, and asks him to accept. Explaining that the reward increased, he says it's what everyone wants. Agreeing with the decision, the rest of the group gives a thumbs up. Reflecting for a moment, Jin says the buff and the trap were a great help. After thinking, he comments that it seems not everyone in this world is evil. In return, he announces that tonight's drinks are on him. Celebrating, the group enthusiastically starts downing barrels of booze. Just then, he notices Claire leaving the tavern and is confused. Going after her, he asks where she thinks she's going at this hour. She replies that she's just going to practice some magic outside. Scene change. She sits alone in a secluded spot under the full moon. With her eyes closed, she begins to concentrate to practice her magic. Watching from a distance, he says she must be tired after the hunt. Curious, he just keeps watching her magic practice. Seeing this, he wonders if he should try to learn that too. Claire is surprised and says of course she can teach him magic. Thinking she accepted too easily, Jin hears her say she wanted to give him a gift. Claire says he saved them from the monster, so she'd be happy to teach him. She added that since he protected her, he's different from other mercenaries. But Jonathan warns that magic isn't learned overnight. She argues that Jin can just come with them, but he questions why. Jonathan puts an arm on him and says a wolf is better off alone. Jin thinks that he doesn't really have anything else to do right now, so he asks the leader what their group's next destination is. He reveals he was also planning to go to the 4th Pioneer City. With a smile, the two of them look at him with happy expressions. Celebrating the coincidence, they say they'd be happy to have a reliable ally. Seeing their reaction, he says his next destination is decided. The scene changes, and the group walks toward a large transport creature. It's revealed that the creature is a Tarrasque, used for transportation between cities. Observing the creature, Jin remarks that it's the Tarrasque from the records he's read. Excited, Jonathan calls for everyone to begin the long journey. During the night, he meditates with Claire and reflects on how difficult it is to learn. He then says there are dozens of reasons, but the worst is the repetition. In a quick flashback, he explains that progress only comes from constant repetition. Sweating profusely, he says that repeating the same thing over and over is agonizing. Recalling his past, he states that he's already used to this kind of pain. He remarks that the 12 years of agony only served to make him stronger. With determination, he decides he will simply persist until he finally succeeds. Suddenly, he feels magic for the first time and is startled. Running to him, she celebrates, saying he has finally started to feel magic. He then comments that it took 10 days just to feel it, finding it very difficult. But she says it was great, as people without talent never feel mana. Preparing her things, she announces that now it's time for the second step of the training. With that, she She pours the contents of a vial into a silver bowl. Pulling on her gloves, she tells him to take off all his clothes. Not understanding the order, he just stares as her hand closes into a fist. Under the full moon, the night is calm and silent in the forest. Dipping her fingers into the bowl, she prepares for the next step. He asks what she's doing, and she explains the process. Finishing the drawing, she warns that she's going to inject the mana now. Looking straight ahead, he just replies yes and waits for the procedure. Then she touches his back, beginning the mana injection process. Suddenly, he feels the mana coursing through his entire body. He comments that this is on a completely different level from what he felt before. Continuing, he says he feels something flowing deep within his body. Asking how he is, she hears him confirm that he feels the mana. With the first step complete, she explains that there are 3 basic stages. She says the first is to feel, the second is to retain, and the third is to use. Since he's managed the first step, she announces they will move on to the second. She explains that she will control the mana and direct it toward his heart. Preparing to store the mana, he concentrates for the difficult process. Saying that everything is ready, she begins to push the energy toward him. Receiving the charge, the magic circle on his back glows very intensely. Suddenly, a vision of an insect monster appears in his mind. The strange creature moves slowly, showing its sharp claws. With a mouthful of teeth, the monster stares with a menacing gaze. The giant insect prepares to attack, bringing its front claws together. Its multiple eyes reveal a malevolent and extremely powerful presence. Sensing a threatening energy, she wonders where it's coming from. Pushed back, she's hit by a wave of unknown energy. As he absorbs the mana, she desperately tries to get away from him. She screams that her mana is being absorbed, and that it's all going to be drained. At that moment, a tail with a blade at its tip grabs her by the waist. Pulled away, she is saved at the last second by Jin's companion. Saved by the wolf, she wonders if that's really a red wolf. Growling at Jin, the wolf takes a guard position in front of her. Still scared, she wonders if it sensed the danger and came to help. Returning to normal, he approaches and calls her name with concern. Worried about her condition, he asks if she's feeling okay. She then explains that what she saw was a dangerous mental world. As a manifestation of power, it appears as a world of its own. Everyone has a mental world, which is shaped according to their path. But she wonders why such a strong presence exists within him. Asking him to be honest, she turns and asks a serious question. She then asks directly if by any chance he has consumed a mana core. Not understanding, he just asks back what a mana core is. She explains they are monster crystals, and he says he's eaten some. Shocked, she grabs him and asks when and how many he ate exactly. He says he ate them for 10 years, maybe tens of thousands of them. Not understanding her reaction, he asks if there's a problem with that. Then she begins to explain that if a human consumes a mana core, with a frightened expression, she says they either die or become monsters. Processing the information, he just stares at the moon with a serious look. An explanation begins about karma, also known as the law of retribution. It's said that this energy is found only in the demonic realm. With it, a monster's core is formed from the karma accumulated in its body. Back in the present, the group continues their journey on top of the Great Tarask. Thinking about it, she says the Black Priest is really getting on her nerves. She remembers that when the portal opened, some humans followed the monsters. These people ate the cores and even sacrificed other humans to the monsters. Recalling the conversation, Jin said he ate tens of thousands of cores. Putting the pieces together, she then wonders if Jin is a Black Priest, but she concludes he isn't, since he wouldn't have shown her his mental world. Still, she finds it strange that he didn't know they were dangerous. It's then revealed that Jin just copied other monsters who ate the cores. Even so, she wonders why he would eat something so disgusting. Reaching a conclusion, she just thinks he's really strange. At this, she warns him to stop eating them because he could die. Reflecting, he thinks her information is wrong since he's still alive. He then wonders if his desire to keep fighting is a consequence of this. At this, he suspects it's all because of the monster cores. He says he'll try, but she screams at him, telling him to stop immediately. She warns that if he continues, it's not just his life at risk. Worried, he asks if it's serious that he won't be able to use magic because of it. She explains that in his current state, it will be difficult to use mana manifestation, but she comforts him by saying he'll at least be able to use mana arts. Confused, he just asks what these mana arts are. Arriving at the 4th Pioneer City, they observed a large crowd of people. Standing in the square, they see an angel statue in the center of the city. He comments on the number of mercenaries, and she says the scale of the request is on another level. Besides, she warns that the mission is being supervised by a holy knight. Just then, the holy knight named Raymond appears before everyone. Observing the knight, Jin and his group just analyze the situation from a distance. It's noted that his aura is so strong it can't be compared to that of mercenaries. Asking about the crowd, he finds out it's a request from the golden bug. Not knowing who that is, he asks if the golden bug is some kind of monster. Seeing his confusion, she says all he understands is hunting monsters. The leader then explains that the golden bug was the richest man of all. With a serious look, he says the tycoon died suddenly. Wanting to know more, Jin asks about assassination, but the leader says it's not certain. Not understanding the mission, he asks for the reason, and learns about the two sons. Since they inherited everything, they need help transporting the enormous fortune. It's then revealed that the mission is to transport the tycoon's entire treasure. He now understands that moving the fortune is why so many people are there. Unexpectedly, their group, the Black Marlin, is called up in front of everyone. Celebrating the chance, the leader pulls Jin along, saying he has to come too. Introducing Jin, he says he captured a monster and tamed a werewolf. In the crowd, someone asks if he's the head smasher, doubting his strength. Confused by the nickname, he hears the leader telling him to trust him. At this, the Holy Knight stares at the group with a very serious look. Announcing the payment, he says they will leave at sunrise. Celebrating the amount, he says that 100 coins is a lot just to move some bags. Explaining how it works, he says half is for the job and half is for the name. He continues, saying the nickname Head Smasher secured the good payment. Recalling the fight, he explains that the nickname means he smashes monsters. Disliking the name, he just thinks whoever came up with it is an animal. With the bag of coins, he comments that 100 gold is a good level of fame. He then realizes this will help him learn the mana arts. The scene changes as night falls over the mercenary group's barracks. Inside, a massive brawl is underway with several men fighting each other. In the midst of the chaos, one man lands a heavy blow on another's face. Worried about the arena, she hears him say that holy knights use mana arts. He then says he plans to get their attention to learn the technique. He explains that according to the chronicles, holy knights are interested in strong people. Continuing, he says that if they recognize your strength, they treat you very well. Confident, he faces his opponent in the arena, saying it won't be difficult. Thinking about the arena, he says he'll get the knight's attention there. As the fight begins, the first opponent lunges at Jin with a swift strike. He quickly dodges the opponent's blow and counters with a powerful punch right to his opponent's face. His fists get grabbed. Without wasting time, he retaliates with a strong blow to his rival's head. As he finishes his opponent, the crowd shouts that the Head Smasher has lived up to his name. Seeing the knight watching, he realizes he finally got his attention, but he says that just getting attention isn't enough and that he's about to get serious. To make the knight take him seriously, he needs to defeat more guys. He believes that if he defeats another 2 or 3 like that, then the knight will wonder where a guy like him came from. With dozens of opponents already defeated, he continues his plan to draw attention. He thinks that if the knight is the real deal, he'll have a reaction. Seeing the scene, the knight orders his apprentice, Rex, to fight him. Outraged by the order, the apprentice wonders why he would fight a mercenary. Knowing this, he says that when that moment comes, things will really begin. Refusing the fight, he thinks this is how the negotiations finally begin. Not understanding the refusal, the apprentice just stares at him with a surprised expression. Shifting to the mercenary dorm, night falls quietly and silently on the city. Seeing the refusal, Claire just stares at the scene, not understanding a thing. Along with her, the group's leader also can't believe what he just heard. Not understanding the refusal, the rest of the group just stares at the situation in shock. From above, the apprentice furiously shouts, asking why he refused the fight. Angry at the refusal, the apprentice is irritated by his attitude. At this, the Holy Knight asks if by any chance he might be injured. With a smile on his face, he replies that he isn't injured at all. So the knight asks what the reason is for him refusing the duel. He explains that as a mercenary, he only fights if he gets paid. Seizing the chance, he proposes that they make a big bet. The knight questions what he could possibly offer of value in a bet. He then says that, much to the knight's delight, he has a lot of money. Showing the bag of coins, he proves he can pay up on the bet. The crowd calls him crazy for wanting to bet against a holy knight. Furious, the apprentice calls him a bastard and gets annoyed, but the knight stops him and says they don't need his money. He then says that instead, they can make another type of bet. He proposes that the winner won't have to be responsible for the loser's injuries. Thinking about the proposal, he concludes that this is exactly what he wants. Accepting the bet, he says he'll reveal what he wants after the duel. In the arena, the two face off, preparing for the start of the big fight. The apprentice stares at him with a serious look, full of determination to win. Returning the gaze, Jin also prepares for the fight with intense concentration. In the audience, everyone shouts and bets their houses on the head crusher's victory. Worried, the group's leader asks him to give a signal if the fight gets dangerous. With a confident smile, he replies that there's no way he's going to lose. Jin then asks if he should hold back, and the apprentice tells him not to dare. The knight warns that he won't be an easy opponent to defeat. With a shout, the apprentice says he understands and prepares for combat. Cheering excitedly, the audience mentions the Holy Knight's mana arts. Using his mana art, He plants his foot and rushes forward in the arena. Getting close, he prepares a swift strike against his opponent. Noticing the speed, Jin realizes he's different from the other rookies. With phenomenal strength, he lands a grazing blow. Realizing the danger, he says that getting hit by that could kill him. Finding it interesting, he says, "So these are the so-called mana arts." At that moment, he manages to stop the apprentice's blow with just one hand. Blocking the blow, he narrowly stops the attack from hitting his face. Wiping his face, he hears the apprentice ask if his name is really Jin. Then the apprentice says he'll regret underestimating a knight. Watching the fight, the crowd comments that he's going to lose all his money. Worried about the situation, Claire just watches the fight in silence. With his arms crossed, the holy knight watches the fight without a word. Dodging the blows, he manages to defend himself well from the apprentice's attack. Dodging the blow, he manages to defend against the attack with his hand. Watching the fight, the holy knight says he feels something strange about this situation. He remembers that before, Jin defeated everyone else with a single blow, but now he notices that his movements are extremely passive in the arena. With a cry of rage, the apprentice prepares to attack with everything he's got. Gathering his strength, he launches a powerful blow at Jin. Unexpectedly, Jin manages to deflect the blow using only the palm of his hand. Shocked, the leader shouts that he deflected the mana attack. He then wonders if that's really possible. Not understanding, he just stares at the scene, completely shocked by the turn of events. With his arm injured, Jin says that this was enough. Smiling, he says he has already assessed his opponent's combat power. Then he asks if he should now check the apprentice's durability. Moving forward, he lands a powerful blow right in the apprentice's stomach. Feeling the blow, the apprentice cries out in pain as he's thrown into the air. Noticing his expression, Jin says that was just one hit. Realizing the situation, the apprentice understands that Jin was just toying with him. With a smile, Jin comments that he seems to have withstood the blow. He then asks if it was thanks to the mana art that he resisted. Saying he's curious, the apprentice gets up to continue the fight. Preparing his hands, Jin asks how many more blows the apprentice can take. Suddenly, the holy knight interrupts the fight, holding his apprentice by the shoulder. Declaring it over, he says the apprentice has lost and tells him to stop. He then announces he will give what was promised, ending the duel. Complaining about the interruption, Jin says he was just getting started and that it was a letdown. Even so, he states that in the end his plan was a success. Seeing the victory, the crowd celebrates, shouting that they believed in him the whole time. Shifting to the Golden Insect Mansion, night falls over the place. Inside the mansion, one of the tycoon's sons is eating like a pig. We are then introduced to Derek, the first son, and Cedric, the second son. Complaining, one of them says it will take 10 days to get into the wall. Replying, the other says they've always been like that, and their bark is worse than their bite. Worried, the first one asks if they'll be okay and what they can do. He then says all they can do is pray their bodies hold out until then. It is explained that mana manifestation is a method of channeling mana. Its main purpose is to enhance muscle strength and weapon power, but depending on the level of mastery, the technique can split seas and mountains. Using his ultimate technique, he demonstrates the power of the sacred flame slash. At the sound of the impact, a few startled birds fly away from the scene. Standing still, he just observes the result of his powerful and precise attack. Impressed, the apprentice says that Lord Raymond is truly incredible to watch. Praising the pure aura, he says it's now Rex's turn. Excited, the apprentice says he's ready and will give it his all. Watching the scene, Jin feels like he's seen that look before. He then wonders if this is the true form of mana manifestation. Curious, he starts to think about what he just witnessed. Raymond says he might be able to cut through anything without using a technique. He then begins to explain how to maintain the flow of mana in the muscles. Finishing the explanation, he tells Jin to keep his mana flow under control. He notices that the technique seems similar to the one Claire taught him. Suddenly, a different kind of mana begins to flow around his face. He then wonders why there's so much mana flowing through his body. Recognizing the gentle flow, he realizes that it's Claire's mana. But right after, another sinister energy starts to emerge from him. The knight tells him to use this mana slowly, moving his body little by little. At that moment, the knight is surprised to see the manifestation of a different energy. With his sword in hand, he is completely enveloped by the new energy. The knight wonders how he's using martial arts he just saw. He also notices the terrifying mana now surrounding the sword's blade. It is explained that mana is normally based on the user's mental world, so the knight wonders what exactly is hiding inside his body. With a smile, he prepares to test his newly acquired skill. Using his sword, he starts to unleash a sequence of strikes in the air. He realizes that this consumes much more energy than it should. He thinks the new skill looks cool as hell and wants to test it out. Continuing their journey, the two Tarasques walk side by side on the road. She congratulates him on learning the mana arts, and he thanks her. Worried, he asks if she's okay. since some of her mana went to him. With a calm expression, she just stares at him without saying a word. She then says she's fine and that it was a small gift. He thinks that thanks to it, he was able to understand the mana arts. Suddenly, the knight says he didn't expect him to be so happy. The apprentice tells him not to relax and to show respect to his master. He then realizes the apprentice is still bitter about his defeat. Smiling, he decides he'll provoke his ego to start a fight. Then he slaps the apprentice's horse on the butt with all his might. With the slap, the horse gets spooked and bolts, running wildly with the knight. Desperately, the knight screams for help while trying to control the animal. Grabbing the horse's reins, Jin says he'll stop him from causing more trouble. Shouting furiously, someone throws all the food on the ground in a fit of rage. Noticing the commotion, Jin says something is happening, but the knight ignores him. He explains that it's just the arrogant behavior of the late tycoon's sons. Since their father's death, they've been eating desperately without stopping for a second. So the knight advises it's better to ignore them to avoid a headache. Finding that strange, Jin gets a bad feeling about this whole situation. Every time the food supplies run low, something strange happens to them. With a contorted face, one of them's anxiety seems to increase greatly. Suddenly, his body begins to transform into a grotesque creature. His bad feeling is confirmed, as it seems a monster is about to emerge at any moment. With wide eyes, he realizes that the imminent danger has finally arrived. A huge monster roars loudly, bursting out from inside one of the carts. From the attack, the Tarrasque screams in pain and begins to thrash wildly. The Tarrasque goes crazy, throwing all the passengers away in its fury. Seeing the scene, the knight realizes it's the tycoon's son's fault. Shouting for his apprentice, the holy knight calls him to battle. Drawing his sword, he prepares to face the new threat before him. Giving orders, he says the top priority is the safety of the passengers. Agreeing with the order, the apprentice charges toward the out-of-control creature. Meanwhile, the cart is completely destroyed by the creature's transformation. All the supplies are thrown into the air by the force of the explosion. With a roar, the creature reveals itself, showing its demonic and grotesque form. Startled, she asks if that is a demonized human, and he gets confused. She explains that they are people transformed into beasts by the realm's karmic energy. Shocked by the revelation, she confirms they are called demonized humans. Using his technique, he moves forward to attack the creature with his blade. With a precise leap, he jumps from his horse to strike. Slicing the creature in half, he divides it with a single blow. The strike cuts through the monster, ending the threat once and for all. Suddenly, he screams desperately for his apprentice, who was caught in the attack. Crying out in pain, the apprentice is hit by one of the creature's tentacles. Using his sword, he slices through the tentacle that trapped him with one strike. Even when severed, the creature's tentacles continue to move on the ground. With a mouth at its center, the creature begins to regenerate rapidly. Shouting, the knight warns that the creature can regenerate and tells him to wait. Facing the monster, the apprentice is surprised by an even larger creature. Angrily, he prepares to face the new threat that has emerged. Suddenly, he is swallowed by the creature. Screaming, the knight runs to save his apprentice from the monster's attack. Seeing the wound, he realizes how serious his apprentice's situation is. Watching the scene, Jin and his group are shocked by the sudden attack. Angrily, Raymond curses the creature and prepares to counterattack. Using his sword, he strikes the monster with a powerful and precise blow. He once again uses his sacred flame slash to finish the creature. Screaming in pain, the monster is hit head-on by the knight's attack. Desperate, he tries to pull his apprentice from inside the demonic creature. Shouting for him to hold on, he promises he will save him at all costs. He tells his apprentice not to give up and to keep fighting to survive. With a serious look, Jin prepares to join the battle and help. Suddenly, several tentacles shoot out towards the knight to attack him. Jumping in front, Jin shields the knight from the attacks with his own body. With a swift move, he throws the knight aside and saves him. Hit by the impact, the knight is thrown hard against the ground. In despair, the other mercenaries shout that the holy knight has been defeated. With a roar, the creature regenerates and takes on a new, grotesque form. With its giant mouth, the creature roars and faces everyone present. He then thinks that if he keeps eating cores, he might end up like that thing. But he decides that worrying about it now won't solve anything. Dodging the attacks, he notices the creature's incredible digestion. He then notes its infinite regeneration and the difficulty of killing the monster. With the regeneration, he concludes the fight will become a battle of attrition. He decides that while he conserves his energy, he will look for a weakness. Opening its mouth, the creature prepares to attack with its teeth. Landing a blow, he manages to sever one of the creature's tentacles. With a quick movement, he prepares to continue the attack sequence. Suddenly, he feels a pain and notices a wound on his body. Suddenly, the group's leader hurls his spear at the creature. Scoring a direct hit, the spear pierces one of the monster's tentacles. Shouting, he announces that they will also help in the battle against the creature. Using her book, Claire prepares to use her magic to help. She She says that the sword must oppose evil and casts a spell. With the magic, the mercenaries drive their spears into the monster's pieces. They then shout that the regeneration is slowing down thanks to the magic. Shouting excitedly, he prepares to get back into the fight with everything he's got. With a smile, he says he didn't expect them to be so brave. Meanwhile, the creature's goo begins to drip onto the ground. Suddenly, the monster begins to absorb the goo and transform. Noticing the change, he sees that the creature's aura has become different. The creature begins to form a human face on its left shoulder. With the transformation, the creature becomes even stronger and more menacing. Startled, he realizes the faces are those of the golden insect's children. In one attack, the creature launches several tentacles toward the mercenaries. The tentacles fly swiftly, preparing to hit them all at once. Alarmed, the leader realizes the creature has recovered all of its flesh. Then, the creature launches several pieces of itself into the air. Charging the monster, he prepares to attack with his sword. With a quick move, he slices off one of the creature's arms. Using the momentum, he leaps over it and continues his string of attacks. Screaming in pain, the monster is hit square in the face by the attack, and Jin has to defend himself from the blow. Taking a step back, he moves away from the monster to regroup. Worried, the leader asks if he's okay, and he confirms that he is. He then wonders what to do, since the creature has gotten stronger. Jin says they need to keep trying, as the problem is the regeneration. But the leader comforts him, saying they've already learned its attack pattern. With a smile, he says that if the leader says so, he believes him. Readying his sword, he says he'll keep cutting until he's satisfied with the fight. With a battle cry, he charges the creature with all his strength. Using his sword, he begins to unleash a series of blows on the monster. The blows cut the creature into several pieces, scattering goo across the ground. Shouting, the leader orders everyone to stop the creature's regeneration at all costs. With a precise strike, he cuts the creature's eye, dealing massive damage. Screaming in pain, the monster feels the hit and begins to fall apart. Finding the core, he prepares for the final blow against the monster. With a serious look, he says the fight is finally over for the creature. Using his sword, he destroys the core and ends the battle for good. Tired, the mercenaries celebrate their hard-won victory against the abomination. Meanwhile, Claire helps tend to the Holy Knight's wounds. Suddenly, the pieces of the core begin to jump and move on their own. Taking on a new form, the small creatures begin to flee the area. Seeing they've won, the mercenaries celebrate, saying their reputation is going to skyrocket. Coming out of the forest, he says it was a good job by everyone there. With a serious gaze, he observes the creature's remains scattered on the ground. On the ground, one of the creature's cores continues to pulse slowly. Suddenly, one of the mercenaries appears, shouting that he survived too. From a distance, a mysterious woman watches the whole scene from behind a tree. She says the tycoon's children were no different from their father in the end. Crying, she wonders how they could be so incompetent and useless. Then she notices Jin approaching the creature's core and becomes curious. Seeing him pick up the core, she grows even more suspicious and curious. Sitting by the fire, he prepares to eat one of the cores he collected. Observing the core, he analyzes it with a serious and curious gaze. Without hesitation, he puts the core in his mouth and starts to eat it. Closing his eyes, he feels the core's effects on his body. Suddenly, he has a vision of a man tied to a table. He realizes it's someone's memory, but he doesn't know whose. The woman says his father's death was a result of his incompetence. She then warns him that if he wants to live, he needs to show results. Continuing, she tells him to show how special he really is. With a vial in her hand, she says she wants to see if he's worth it. Pouring the liquid, she forces the man to drink the strange substance. With a scream of pain, his body slowly begins to transform. Coming to his senses, he is shocked by the memory he just saw. His body trembling, he throws up everything he ate in the forest. Frightened, he runs away from the camp at high speed. Collapsed on the ground, he vomits again after the disturbing vision. It's explained that eating a core can rarely grant you the monster's power, or sometimes it makes you absorb its memories, but with side effects. He then realizes the memory belonged to one of the tycoon's sons. Putting the pieces together, he understands the liquid contained the karma that transformed them. He then wonders if that woman could be a dark priestess. With this revelation, he is shocked to understand the truth behind it all. Approaching him, Claire calls out and says they need to leave soon. Noticing his sweat, she asks why he's acting so strange. Worried, she asks if he ate another internal core and scolds him. He wonders if he should tell her, but fears it might cause a misunderstanding. Deciding to hide it, he says it's nothing and that he'll keep it a secret. From a distance, the mysterious woman continues to watch the group's every move. With a smile, she seems to be plotting something against them all. Returning to the camp, he continues his journey with his companions. With a suspicious look, the mysterious mysterious woman observes the group's conversation. They gather to discuss the recent events of their dangerous journey. She wonders if he's plotting something, since he eats raw cores. Smiling, she says she's curious about what will happen in the future. She then wonders if they will be allies or enemies when they meet. The scene changes, and the group gathers for the knight apprentice's funeral. With his sword, the holy knight pays his last respects to the apprentice. He offers his prayers to Ea, the god of harmony, for his rest. He says that Rex was brave and dedicated his entire life to peace. Finally, he asks that his apprentice's departure not be in vain. Remembering the duel, Jin thinks it's a shame he died so young. The knight stares at Jin with a confused and doubtful expression. Suddenly, he is startled to see a strange creature up high. Surprised, he shouts that it's a red wolf on the cliff. Growling, the wolf stares down at the group with a menacing look. Suddenly, the knight kneels before him and gives thanks. Confused, he asks why he's suddenly doing that. The knight explains that the red wolf is the god's closest companion. He believes the wolf's appearance means the god is comforting them, but Jin says the wolf is just his pet mutt. Noticing the disbelief, he decides to call the wolf over. With a serious look, he tells the mutt to stop messing around and get over here. Frightened, the wolf obeys its master's command and approaches. Leaping from the cliff, it runs towards Jin at great speed. Landing in front of him, the wolf proves it's really his pet. The knight says the wolf is a monster that not even the Order could tame. He then explains that he killed a werewolf, and the wolf has been following him ever since. Not understanding the explanation, the knight wonders what kind of guy he is. Turning his back, he just watches the scene with a thoughtful look. The wolf, in turn, just stares at the apprentice's grave in silence. Approaching him, the knight asks if he can ask for a favor. He then asks that, if the wolf has no name, to call it Rex. He explains that calling a sacred beast a mutt is rather inappropriate. Besides, he wishes for Rex's will not to end there with his death. He reinforces the request, saying he didn't let go of his sword until the very end. So he asks the red wolf to carry on his legacy under the name Rex. Reflecting, he thinks about Rex's legacy and the knight's request. Turning to the wolf, he asks if the animal agrees to the new name. Nodding its head, the wolf seems to accept the name and Rex's legacy. Seeing the confirmation, he looks at the knight and accepts the request. With a smile, the knight thanks him for accepting the favor. Suddenly, a mysterious old man approaches the group in the forest. Smiling, he asks if by any chance he has arrived at a bad time. Surprised, the knight recognizes him and respectfully calls him Elder. He then realizes that if he's an elder, that makes him an authority figure. It is revealed that he is Bao, the elder of the third pioneer city. Along with the elder, a group of warriors approaches the funeral site. Greeting the elder, the knight bows with respect and reverence. Apologizing, the elder expresses his regret for intruding during the apprentice's funeral. He then reveals he is there to investigate the death of the tycoon's son. Surprised, the knight wonders if they are still the prime suspects. Confused, Jin asks if they were still under suspicion for the death. He thinks it makes sense, since the client died during their mission. The knight asks if their evidence wasn't enough to clear their names. With a serious look, the elder says the evidence was more than enough. He says that how they transformed into those abominations remains a mystery. Approaching, he says the case reeks of a dark priest's involvement. Facing Jin, he directly asks what he thinks of the whole situation. Surprised, Jin wonders how the elder suddenly knows his name. He then asks if the elder thinks he's a dark priest. Hearing the question, the elder just stares at Jin in silence for a moment. The scene changes, showing the Vritra arena of the third pioneer city. Inside the arena, the place is empty and silent, with no movement. The elder says that strong people like him usually stand out from a young age, but he continues, saying that he appeared out of nowhere and accomplished great feats. Furthermore, he notes that conveniently, he is connected to the abomination incident, so he asks if Jin doesn't find this whole situation a bit suspicious. He thinks it's normal for them to suspect him, since he's not from this world. With a serious look, he prepares to answer the elder's question. He then asks what this has to do with him having to duel. The knight says he just came from a battle and is in no condition to fight, but the elder simply asks, "So what?" completely ignoring the excuse. With a serious look, he asks if Jin won't cooperate with the investigation. The knight realizes the elder doesn't care at all about his condition. He thinks he can't just beat up someone who thinks he's a priest. Besides, he thinks fighting an old man would be a bit embarrassing. Smiling, the elder says he seems to have a lot on his mind. With a powerful aura, he says worrying about his age is unnecessary. Planting his foot firmly, he prepares to show his true strength in the arena. He then says he became an elder purely due to his skill. Surprised, Jin realizes the elder is extremely fast for his age. With a quick move, he prepares to use one of his techniques. Using his skill, he hits Jin with the tolling of the great bell. Feeling the blow, Jin screams in pain as he's hit squarely by the attack. From the impact, he is thrown hard against one of the bonfires. Worried, the knight shouts for him and warns him about the elder's power. He explains that the elder is the strongest among all the monks of Ritra. The elder then tells the knight not to be biased in the fight. Moving quickly, he prepares to continue his string of attacks. He warns that he might get jealous and forget to go easy on him. With a swift blow, he strikes Jin hard, right in the stomach, but the blow is stopped by his hand as he manages to catch the attack. Surprised, the elder wonders how he managed to catch the blow with his bare hands. He then realizes the blow hurt, hitting the same spot the abomination did. Suddenly, he realizes his body is completely healed of all its wounds. The injury from the abomination should have taken at least 2 weeks to heal. As he fought, he remembers the wound he had and notices the healing. He notes that even the damage from the elder's last blow has already vanished. Shocked, he wonders if he gained the abomination's regeneration by eating its core. With a smile, he says this is the best luck of all. Returning to the fight, he exchanges a series of blows with the elder. The elder asks if he shouldn't be injured, and Jin cheers him on. He says he'd love to continue, but he can't go beyond the fight's limits. Announcing he has confirmed the rumors, he says it's time for the next step. He then asks what the next step is, and the elder prepares himself. Using his skill, he says he will use his mind's eye. With the symbol on his forehead, the elder stares at him with the mind's eye. He explains that he gave up his sight to open a third eye. It is said that the mind's eye can see even a person's true essence. Using his ability, he tries to find out if Jin is a dark priest. Suddenly, the vision of that insect monster appears in the elder's mind. The creature prepares to attack, bringing its 4 claws together once more. Its multiple eyes again reveal an evil and extremely powerful presence. Shaking off the vision, the elder tells the brat to get out of his way. Startled, he moves away and tries to understand what just happened. With the symbol glowing, he says that this is his mental world. Suddenly, he is surrounded by several demonic and dark creatures. Frightened, he stumbles back and tries to get away from the sight. Worried, Jin asks if the elder is okay, but he doesn't answer. The elder says that mental world is horrifying and he's never seen anything like it. He then concludes that he's not a dark priest in that case. Worried, he calls out to the elder to see if he's alright. Bowing, the elder apologizes for his rudeness. He then reveals he wanted to hire him for a mission against the dark priests. Just then, a mysterious woman approaches the group and catches his attention. Walking toward him, she says it's a pleasure to meet him. She then introduces herself as Cindy, the youngest daughter of the golden insect. Walking through the forest, they continue their journey to solve the mystery. Cindy explains this isn't the first time these monsters have appeared around here. Recently, many people have been turning into monsters in the 3rd pioneer city. With a serious look, he starts to think about the forest's contamination. Suddenly, Jin notices something strange up ahead and stops walking. Getting closer, they find a strange creature in the middle of the forest. The creature is being attacked by a group of people in strange masks. It's revealed that the creature is a rift core, contaminating the area. On one side, a group of priests prays to purify the land from the curse. They pray fervently, asking for help to deal with the dangerous situation. On the other side, the masked men continue to attack the creature with their weapons. They fire a strange substance at the creature, trying to destroy it with everything they've got. He thinks that purifying a rift core doesn't seem to be a common thing. He then asks if the power of karma isn't supposed to weaken with distance. With this confirmation, he realizes something very strange is happening here. Nodding, she confirms his suspicions about the situation. Cindy then says this means someone is pulling the strings behind the scenes. With a serious look, he concludes it's a dark priest. She warns that if the monsters keep increasing, the city will be in danger. With a worried look, the elder says that in the worst-case scenario, he fears they could lose the entire city to the contamination. That's why they've been trying to find the dark priest's hideout. With a serious expression, he begins to explain the mission to Jin. He then invites him to join the extermination operation in 2 weeks. He understands this is what they wanted to ask from the very beginning. It's a request from Elder Bo and Cindy, the tycoon's sole heir. Smiling, he realizes it's a request from very important figures in the city. He then wonders if he's finally being recognized for his skills. Changing scenes, the group continues their journey back to the city. Worried, Claire says she was very anxious about them taking so long. She says that if you're accused of being a priest, you can be tortured. Imagining the scene, he wonders about the torture and grows apprehensive. Arriving at a new location, she celebrates their safe arrival. Looking at the horizon, he wonders what that place is before him. It's revealed they've arrived in Yurgis, the safe, walled city. With its impossible scale, the city is the safest place in the world. Observing the city, he wonders if he'll ever be able to live there. But he decides it's not the time yet and calls for the knight. With a tired look, the knight turns to hear what he has to say. He then suggests they rest for a bit before continuing their journey. With everyone tired, they decide to stop stop and rest for a while near the Tarask. The group's leader asks if he's heading to the third pioneer city. He says that even though it's sudden, everyone goes their own way. Agreeing, he asks what they'll do now that the mission is over. Smiling, the leader says he's going to have a drink, and then another. Turning to Claire, he asks what she plans to do now. She replies that she'll probably look for another job to save up money. He asks if she didn't make enough money, but she says she didn't. Confused, he asks why she needs so much money. She explains that although she's a mage, she's only gathered common knowledge so far. She says she can get by like this, but she wants to learn more advanced magic. That's why she's saving money to go to the magic tower. He thinks that the magic tower is like a university for magic. After thinking for a moment, he decides to do something to help her. Stopping in front of her, he gets ready to give her a gift. He then asks if the bag of coins he has is enough. Showing her the money, he says it's to help her get to the tower. Surprised, she says she can't accept it, as it would be shameless. But he explains that it's not free, it's a payment for a debt. Shocked, the group's leader wonders if he's really going to give her all that. Unable to refuse, she stays silent for a moment. He then places the bag of coins in her hands with a smile. With a smile, he says they'll see each other again next time. Surprised by his gesture, she's left speechless and just stares at him. Her face blushing, she remains silent, processing what just happened. Suddenly, she grabs him by the cape, stopping him from leaving. Thanking him, she says she will definitely repay this favor in the future. With a determined look, she promises to repay him for his kindness. He just looks at her in silence, accepting her promise without a word. Saying his goodbyes, he tells everyone to stay safe and take care on their journey. With the bag of coins, she and the leader say goodbye to him. Turning his back, he starts walking toward his new destination. He then sets off on his journey, leaving his former companions behind. Meanwhile, the wolf stretches out on the grass, catching the knight's attention. Seeing the wolf, the knight calls him by his new name, Rex. With a smile, the knight says goodbye to Rex and watches him leave. Walking towards the sunset, he bids farewell to his companion. Walking through the city, Jin watches the guards and residents move about. He turns for a moment, feeling like he's being watched from a distance. On the wall, Cindy says he looks worried about something. She then asks what's on his mind, mentioning the mercenary. With a serious look, she continues to press the elder on the matter. She reminds him that he himself said Jin seemed to have consumed a core. The elder just stares at her in silence, not answering her question. He says that just because Jin consumed one, it doesn't mean he's a priest. She scolds him, saying that anyone who consumes a core loses their own ego. Closing her eyes, she asks the master to be honest with her. She asks if he's protecting Jin, hoping there's still some humanity left in him. The elder remembers a masked figure and falls silent. With a sad look, he just stares at the ground without saying a word. He then says he doesn't want to continue this conversation and walks away. She apologizes for her rudeness, but tells him there's one thing he should know. She says she'll keep it a secret, but if he makes a mistake, she'll expose him herself. Continuing, she warns that when that happens, not even the elder will escape unscathed. Turning her back, she walks away, leaving the elder alone on the wall. He says that won't happen, as he's confident in his decision. He explains that Jin's mental world didn't crumble, even with the cores. He concludes this is irrefutable proof that he has maintained his humanity. The secret is kept because the world isn't ready to accept him yet. On the wall, he watches Jin walk away with the rest of the warriors. He believes the power that young man carries could bring hope. Staring at the horizon, he seems to have faith in the young warrior's potential. Marching in formation, a large army prepares for the battle to come. It's revealed they are the first expeditionary force of the pioneer city. One of the soldiers says there are times of peace and times to fight. To the sound of spears, the army readies for the imminent combat. He then says the spear pointed to his hand and ordered him. With spears planted in the ground, the army readies for battle. The soldier says the spear pointed to his heart and ordered him. Suddenly, he picks up a rock and smashes it against his own head. Startled, the surrounding soldiers don't understand what's happening. His head bleeding, he throws the rock to the ground and faces the soldiers. Starting to count, he gets ready to show off his regeneration ability. The wound on his head begins to close in a rapid and bizarre way. The worms inside his head move, healing the wound completely. He explains that he gained the ability to regenerate by consuming a core. He reveals that the fracture caused by the beast healed in just 2 days. With a smile, he realizes just how powerful his new ability is. He then says that this is why it's worth consuming the cores. One of the soldiers comments that he didn't know he smashed his own head. Apologizing, he says there was just something he wanted to test. The man is revealed to be Roland, the supreme commander of the expeditionary force. He says he likes geniuses like you, who think outside the box. He continues, saying you must be an extraordinary genius since you were recommended. Displeased with the small talk, the other man asks for the mission plan. Smiling, he praises the impatience and efficiency of the genius before him. He explains that their destination is the forest north of the pioneer city. The battle's duration will depend on the situation, but the target is 10 days. The man then questions if 10 days isn't too long for the mission. The commander agrees, saying that normally it would be too much time for that. Suddenly, a strange creature bursts from the ground and prepares to attack. He explains that because of the cores, the beast's territory has expanded. Startled, one of the soldiers shouts for the commander, warning of the imminent danger. Drawing his weapon, the commander prepares to face the creature quickly. With a precise strike, he cuts the creature in half with his blade. He then says that 10 days is a short time since these creatures are appearing. Suddenly, several other creatures burst from the ground, surrounding the group. Shouting, the commander warns that it's an ambush and tells everyone to get ready. With a roar, the creatures charge forward to attack the army. Attacking the soldiers, the creatures begin to inflict heavy casualties on the group. He recognizes the creatures as leech rats and is surprised that they can dig. The commander then shouts for everyone to protect their backs and not to turn around. Fighting together, the soldiers try to defend themselves from the creature's surprise attack. Suddenly, the commander sees Jin standing still and tells him to be careful. He shouts for him to watch out, but it's too late to warn him. With wide eyes, he watches as Jin is surrounded by the creatures. Allowing himself to be caught, he is completely surrounded by the leech rats. The creatures grab him from all sides, preparing to devour him. With their claws, they hold him down tightly, pinning him to the ground. Shouting, the commander asks if he's gone mad and what he's doing. With a dagger, he attacks one of the creatures holding him down. While attacking, he begins to chew on the creature. Screaming, the creatures begin to devour him with their sharp fangs. He then wonders if he'll inherit their ability if he devours them. He thinks that the demonic beasts no longer seem like monsters to him. Holding the core, he prepares to absorb the creature's power. He then begins to devour the cores one by one, without hesitation. It's explained that by consuming them, there's a chance to acquire their abilities. This was the true secret to how he survived for 12 years. With a blood-stained face, he gets ready to continue devouring the cores. He says he's already getting full, having devoured about 40 of them. Suddenly, one of the soldiers finds him in the middle of the slaughter and is startled. Worried, the soldier asks if he's okay and what happened there. He yells that at this rate, he won't be able to eat the cores hidden from everyone. Pushing the soldier away, he says not to worry because they are safe. Suddenly, the sacred choir begins to play a strengthening song. The commander and his musicians play their instruments with great concentration and skill. With a smile, he uses his violin to boost the soldiers' power. With the music, the soldiers shout that they are overflowing with energy and power. He then notices that the soldiers' resistance and defense have increased. Surprised, he thinks that the commander was a swordsman, but he's actually a support. Shouting, one of the soldiers tells the entire army to prepare to fight. With renewed energy, he says it's time for a counterattack against the creatures. As night falls, the full moon illuminates the soldiers' camp. With the bodies piled up, a soldier tells everyone to gather for the count. He then warns that the results will count towards their reward and asks for cooperation. One soldier says he can't understand his strange actions in battle. Unable to get the ability, he digs at the ground with his hands, frustrated. He wonders if he really failed to get the digging ability from the creatures. The commander asks if he's alright, and he apologizes for causing concern. He says the battle was impressive and that he thought he was going to die. Smiling, he continues, saying that he proved everything with his results. He then reveals that he heard he killed 267 leech rats all by himself. He explains that common soldiers kill 4 or 5, and knights kill 150. With a smile, he says this is to be expected from a genius. Thinking about the time, he says that if he hadn't devoured the cores, it would have been a disaster. With a confused look, he asks if the commander was really a support. He asks if he's looking down on supports, but he denies it and explains. He says he thought he was more interested in brute force in battle. Embarrassed, the commander says he hit the nail on the head with his analysis. He confesses that deep down, he also wanted to wield a sword in battle. He explains that the reason the Order Alliance fights is for peace. Recalling the past, he says he chose the role where he could help the most. He says his swordsmanship is average, but his music is one of the best. He then realizes the commander is a better person than he thought. With a smile, he says that Roland seems to be a very good person. He then asks if he could listen to a bit of the commander's music. Swaying in the wind, the Order's flags stand out in the camp. A week later, the army continues its journey through the dangerous forest. They advance through the Demon Land, destroying several rift cores along the way. In a meeting, they discuss the stronger beasts they will encounter. One of the soldiers says they are even more excited than at the beginning. Shouting, A group of goblins charges forward to attack the army with everything they've got. With his sword, he cuts off a goblin's head in a single blow. Facing a rabbit monster, he prepares for battle against the creature. With a precise cut, he finishes the monster with a strike of his sword. Eating the core, he tries to absorb the creature's ability for himself. He then realizes it was another failure, and he didn't get the ability. The commander notices that whenever a monster appears, he handles everything by himself. With a sigh, he joins the others to discuss the current situation. One of the knights says that being outdone by a mercenary is humiliating. Another complains that the soldiers are too relaxed and will still get rewards. But the commander says this is good, since no one got hurt. He says they need to rest while they still can for the next battle. The journey continues towards a narrow and dangerous canyon. Arriving at the hideout, they find several people on top of stone pillars. One of the men wonders if the Order Alliance is coming to attack them. He then questions how they managed to find the location of the secret base. The woman says it would be strange if they didn't suspect, with so many cores scattered around. She continues, saying she believes their youngest one has already foreseen everything. With a smile, she says the chosen one can't be that incompetent. Down below, a mysterious man watches the other dark priests at the site. He tells them not to worry, as defending is more advantageous than attacking. With a smile, he says their reaction was just a little faster than expected. He then guarantees that the Great Dark Plan will not suffer any interference. Outside, the army prepares to invade the priest's hideout. Suddenly, they are surprised by a giant spider web at the entrance. The army gets stuck in the web, unable to advance or retreat from the location. Trapped in the snare, they are surrounded by several giant and dangerous spiders.